This is VOA News. I'm Marissa Melton. More information is emerging about the indictment faced by former President Donald Trump. AP correspondent Norman Hall reports.
Two people familiar with the indictment handed down against the former president by a New York grand jury told the Associated Press that Donald Trump is facing multiple charges of falsifying business records, including at least one felony offense. The indictment against him remains sealed, but details were confirmed by people who requested anonymity. Meanwhile, a letter from Manhattan District Attorney Alvin Bragg to three Republican House committee chairs urges them to refrain from inflammatory accusations, withdraw demands for information, and let the process proceed without unlawful political interference. I'm Norman Hall.
U.S. Vice President Kamala Harris, who's finishing up a week-long tour of Africa, on Friday urged Zambia's creditors to help it restructure its debts. Zambia defaulted on its debts during the COVID-19 pandemic in late 2020. China is Zambia's largest bilateral creditor. Harris said, however, that her visit was not about China.
It's about an independent understanding of the intertwined histories of our nations.
For Harris, this final stop on her tour is special. She visited Zambia as a young girl while her grandfather was stationed there as an Indian diplomat. Zambia's president described Harris's visit as a homecoming as she toured the grounds of the presidential palace on Friday. Brazil's President Luiz Inácio Lula da Silva will meet with Chinese President Xi Jinping on April 14th in Beijing. This, according to his office on Friday. This reschedules a visit that was postponed last week after Lula was diagnosed with mild pneumonia. From Washington, you're listening to VOA News. U.S. President Joe Biden called on Russia on Friday to release detained Wall Street Journal reporter Evan Gershkovich, charged with spying by Moscow. Biden said let him go as he left the White House for a trip to storm-devastated Mississippi. The Wall Street Journal said the detention of its reporter was based on false allegations. Oscar Pistorius attended a parole hearing in South Africa Friday, only to be told at the hearing that he had not yet served the minimum detention period for the murder of his girlfriend. Reuters' David Doyle has more.
Oscar Pistorius was not granted parole on Friday, a decade after murdering his girlfriend, Riva Steenkamp, South African prison authorities said. It had been thought that the former Paralympic champion, jailed in 2016, was eligible to be considered for early release, having served half his 13-year sentence. But Singabako Ngalo, national spokesperson for the Department of Correctional Services, said the court had received a clarification order from the Supreme Court. It stated, he said, that Pistorius had not completed the minimum detention period.
That's Reuters' David Doyle reporting. The U.S. State Department said Friday that the United States plans to open an embassy in the South Pacific island nation of Vanuatu. It's Washington's latest move to boost its diplomatic presence in the Pacific to counter China's growing influence. And the Vatican has announced Pope Francis will be discharged from a Rome hospital on Saturday and that his recovery is normal. AP correspondent Charles de Ledesma.
Visitors to Vatican City express hope that Pope Francis will be well enough to attend the traditional Easter celebrations. Father David from Mexico says he wishes the Holy Father a speedy recovery. The Vatican had earlier said the Pope spent his second night in a Rome hospital serenely. He's receiving antibiotics to treat bronchitis. The Vatican's announced Francis will be at St. Peter's Square for Palm Sunday Mass to mark the start of Holy Week, which culminates on Easter, April 9. I'm Charles de Ledesma.
Colombian authorities have raised the alert level for the deadly Nevado del Ruiz volcano to orange, suggesting a greater probability of an eruption in the coming days or weeks due to an increase in seismic activity. And a fierce tornado blasted through Little Rock, Arkansas Friday, ripping away roofs and walls from many buildings, uprooting trees, flipping over vehicles, and leaving hundreds of people injured, according to media reports. Baptist Medical Health Center received 21 patients from the storm, 5 of them listed in critical condition at its 2 area hospitals. Marissa Melton, VOA News. This is VOA News. I'm Marissa Melton. A top Ukrainian cleric from a church with alleged Moscow ties was sentenced to house arrest on Saturday after a hearing into whether he glorified invading Russian forces and stoked religious divisions. Kyiv is cracking down on the Ukrainian Orthodox Church, or UOC, on the grounds it is pro-Russian and collaborating with Moscow. The church denies those claims. In a statement, the UOC said a court in Kyiv had also ordered Metropolitan Pavlo to wear an electronic bracelet. The Interfax Ukraine and Ukrinform agencies said Pavlo had been given 60 days of house arrest. After the ruling, Pavlo told reporters he believes the decision was a political one. Pavlo has been living in a 980-year-old monastery complex. The government says the church must evacuate the monastery. Without billions of dollars to feed millions of hungry people, the world will see mass migration, destabilized countries, and starving children and adults in the next 12 to 18 months. This, according to the head of the Nobel Prize-winning UN World Food Program. On Friday, David Beasley praised the increased funding from the United States and Germany last year and urged China, Gulf nations, billionaires, and other countries to, in his words, step up big time. In an interview before he hands the reins of the world's largest humanitarian organization to U.S. Ambassador Cindy McCain next week, the former South Carolina governor said he's extremely worried that WFP won't raise about $23 billion it needs this year to help an estimated 350 million people in 49 countries who desperately need food. He said, right at this stage, he said, I'll be surprised if we get 40% of it, quite frankly. And Pope Francis has been discharged from the Rome hospital where he was treated this week for bronchitis. This is VOA News. A Palestinian motorist rammed his car into a group of people in the occupied West Bank on Saturday, according to the Israeli military, wounding 3 before soldiers opened fire at him, with the Palestinian Health Ministry saying he'd been killed. A Palestinian official said the 23-year-old was a member of the Palestinian security forces. In Jerusalem, a man detained by Israeli police near a flashpoint holy site grabbed an officer's gun and fired it, prompting the unit to shoot him dead, the force said, an account doubted by Arab leaders and probed by authorities. The Jerusalem incident overnight at the edge of the Al-Aqsa Mosque complex, an icon of Palestinian nationalism, came at a high point of Muslim attendance for the holy month of Ramadan, amid heightened fears of an escalation in violence. South Africa's governing ANC party said Saturday that it had sent senior officials to Russia to discuss recalibration of the global order with President Vladimir Putin's party. The party said the visit followed an invitation from the United Russia Party. It's Russia's largest political party and a long-standing ally to the ANC. Moscow has been for years looking to bolster its political and economic ties with countries across Africa. On Friday, Putin signed off on a new foreign policy aimed at curtailing what he called Western dominance. South Africa has refused to condemn the invasion of Ukraine and has largely isolated Moscow on the world stage. South Africa says it wants to stay neutral and prefers dialogue to end the war. Mexico has recovered from the United States a giant stone statue known as an earth monster that dates to the Olmec civilization before the Christian era. This, according to authorities in Mexico. The elaborately carved statue weighs more than a ton and is nearly 1.8 meters tall and 1.5 meters wide. This, according to the National Anthropology and History Institute in a release. The Olmec civilization predated those of the Maya and Aztec cultures. Its artisans were known for creating colossal stone heads, statues, and upright slabs. The Institute said it believes the statue was created sometime between 800 and 400 BC. Finns cast ballots in a closely contested parliamentary election on Sunday that could cost left-wing Prime Minister Sanna Marin power amid voter concern over the future of generous public services at a time of economic downturn. With no party seen as holding a decisive lead, the election is likely to be followed by lengthy coalition talks, although whichever party wins on Sunday will have the first attempt at forming a government. And passengers going by ferry from the UK to France on Saturday, first day of Easter holidays, experienced huge delays due to lengthy French border checks. Dover port authorities released that information. Marissa Melton, VOA News.